Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending my presentation. My name is Trias, and today I will discuss my research titled Calculation of Production Cost Using Job Order Costing Method at Al-Quddus Catering. This research is part of my final project for the Diploma 3 in Accounting program at Polytechnic Negeri Semarang. Here is the outline of my presentation. The first chapter is introduction, the second chapter is literature review, and the last is research methodology. Next, move on to introduction. Chapter introduction will cover background, problem formulation, research objective, and research benefit. Next, move on to the background. The intense competition in the business world, driven by globalization, demands companies to adopt effective strategies to survive and grow. Accurate production cost calculation plays a crucial role as the basis for setting competitive selling prices and optimizing profits. Al-Quddus Catering, operating in the catering business, currently employs a generalized cost calculation method that lacks alignment with specific customer orders. This has led to challenges in pricing accuracy, especially for customized orders. Page by implementing the job order costing method, the company can allocate production costs more precisely, ensuring accurate overhead allocation and enabling competitive pricing strategies. This research aims to analyze the application of job order costing in Al-Quddus Catering and compare this effectiveness with the current method. Next, move on to problem formulation. The first is how is the calculation of the cost of production for each menu in the catering business using the job order costing method for February 2025. And the second is how does the calculation of the cost of production determined by Al-Quddus Catering compare to the calculation using the job order costing method for February 2025. Next, move on to research objective. The first is to determine the calculation of the cost of production for each menu in the catering business using the job order costing method for February 2025. And the second is to compare the cost of production calculation for each menu determined by Al-Quddus Catering with the calculation using the job order costing method for February 2025. Next is research benefit. The first is that this research can enhance knowledge and understanding of cost of production calculations using the job order costing method, particularly in the catering business. The second is this research can serve as a consideration and information source in determining the appropriate cost of production using the job order costing method, thereby aiding in more effective decision making. And the last is this research can be used as a research information and reference material, particularly for students and other readers interested in cost of production calculation using the job order costing method. Next chapter is literature review. This chapter will cover cost accounting, cost classification, cost of goods manufactured, method of cost accumulation, and characteristic of job order costing. Next, cost accounting. According to Sujarweni 2015, cost accounting is information about production costs for the purpose of managing activities in industrial companies, including raw materials, direct labor costs, and factory overhead costs, as well as the storage and sale of finished products. According to Sujarti 2013, cost accounting is the process of recording, classifying, summarizing, and presenting the cost of manufacturing and selling products or delivering services in specific ways, along with the interpretation of these results. From the two definitions above, it can be concluded that cost accounting is a systematic process of gathering, analyzing, and interpreting production and sales cost information to support management decision making in industrial enterprises. Next, cost classification. What is cost classification? Cost classification refers to the systematic grouping of costs into categories based on their characteristic, purpose, or behavior. According to Bustami and Nurlera 2013, this process aims to simplify cost management and provide essential information for effective decision making, budgeting, and cost control. Next, classification of costs based on core business function. According to FANIA 2020, this classification involves key categories related to company activities. The first is production costs, including direct material costs, direct labor costs, and factory overhead costs. The second is marketing costs. The third is administrative and general costs, and the last is financial costs. Next, cost classification based on time period. The first is capital expenditure, cost of acquiring or upgrading long-term assets such as machinery or buildings that provide benefit beyond one period. And the second is revenue expenditures, cost for routine operational expenses such as salaries, maintenance, or utilities benefiting only the current period. Next, cost classification based on cost object or cost center. The first is direct cost. Cost is usually attributed to specific product or department such as direct material or direct labor. And the second is indirect cost. Cost shared across multiple departments or products such as at utilities and facility maintenance. Next, cost classification based on control. The first is controllable costs, expenses that managers can influence, such as material purchases or advertising budget. And the second is uncontrollable costs, costs that cannot be adjusted in the short term, like long term leases or depreciation. Next, cost classification based on decision making. The first is relevant costs. These are costs that vary between alternatives and influence decision outcomes, such as additional labor for a special order. And the second is irrelevant costs. These do not affect decision making, like some costs which are already incurred and cannot be recovered. Next, cost classification based on cost behavior. The first is fixed costs remain constant regardless of activity levels. The second is variable costs change proportionally with production volume. And the last is semi-variable costs contain both fixed costs and variable component. Next is cost of goods manufactured. Cost of goods manufactured refers to the total production cost incurred by a company to convert raw materials into finished goods during a specific period. It represents the cost of manufacturing goods that are ready for sale and includes all direct and indirect costs associated with the production process. Next, method of cost accumulation. The first is job order costing. Job order costing is used when production is based on specific orders or projects. Each order or project is treated as a separate unit, allowing costs to be identified and allocated especially. This method is commonly applied in industries producing customized goods such as shipbuilding or construction, according to Hassan and Andriansah 2019. Next is process costing. Process costing is designed for mass production of homogeneous product. In this method, costs are calculated for specific time periods such as monthly or annually and evenly distributed among all units produced. This approach is ideal for industries like sugar or cement manufacturing, according to Rahmawati and Susilo 2018. Next, characteristic of job order costing. According to Mulyadi 2018, job order costing is a method used in business that produce goods or services based on specific customer orders. The cost of production is calculated separately for each order, making it suitable for customers or non-standard products. There are the key characteristics. The first is customizable protection. The second is separate cost allocation. The third is detailed cost tracking. The fourth is use of predetermined overhead rates. The fifth is compilation-based costing, and the last is applicability. Example of industries, the first is construction project, the second is catering services, and the last is custom printing and design. Next, move on to the last chapter, research methodology. The last chapter will cover research method, data classification based on nature, data classification based on source, rating methodology, data collection method, and data analysis method. Let's start with research method. A research method is a systematic scientific approach used to collect, analyze, and interpret data to achieve specific study objective. According to Sujarwani 2022, it is a rational, empirical, and systematic method employed by research to gather and analyze information related to their study. Similarly, Sugiono 2019 describes it as a structured approach used to obtain data for specific purposes and uses. In this study, the research method involves steps such as data classification, collection, analysis, and interpretation, all aimed at exploring the application of job order costing. This ensures that the results are valid, reliable, and meaningful in addressing the objectives of the study. Next, move on to data classification based on nature. The first is qualitative data, includes company history, organizational structure, production processes, and operational details. And the second is quantitative data, cover production data, sales data, and cost components such as raw material, labor, and overhead costs. Next, data classification based on source. The first is primary data, collected directly from interviews, observation, and documentation from the company. And the second is secondary data, obtained from existing reports, and literature relevant to the study. Next is rating methodology. The first is descriptive method, describe the company's organizational structure and production processes. And the second is expository method, explain differences between existing and costing method. Proposed costing method. Next, move on to data collection method. The first is interviews, the second is observation, the third is document studies, and the last is literature studies. Next topic is data analysis method. This research utilized comparative analysis to evaluate differences between the company's current production cost calculation and the job order costing method. The step used is the first collect production cost data, the second apply job order costing, the third is compare outcomes, and the last is conclude differences and implication. I think it's all my presentation. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.